My sister moved in after her divorce, saying it was just temporary. 6 months later, she changed the locks on my house, and when I tried to make her leave, our mom threatened to call CPS on me. 6 months ago, my sister Rebecca, 34F, showed up at my door with the 3 kids, 10M, 8F, 5M, and 2 suitcases. She was crying, the kids looked shell-shocked, and she told me her husband Kevin had been cheating for over a year. She just found out that morning when she discovered credit card statements for hotels and jewelry she never received. I've always been close with Rebecca. Growing up, she protected me from our mother Patricia's more extreme moods. When Mom would go on one of her tirades about how I wasn't living up to my potential or how disappointing I was compared to my cousins, Rebecca would sneak into my room afterward with snacks and comic books. So when she showed up needing help, I didn't hesitate. "It's just for a few weeks," she said, trying to hold back tears while her oldest Tyler stood behind her looking like he was trying to be brave. "Just until I can figure out what to do. I can't stay with Mom. You know how she is." I did know. Our mother has always been intense. She's the type who shows up unannounced to check on things, rearranges your furniture because the feng shui is all wrong, and has opinions about every aspect of your life. But she's also fiercely protective of family, especially Rebecca. My house isn't huge, but I'd worked hard to buy it 3 years ago. Software development pays well, and I'd been careful with money. It's a 3-bedroom colonial in a good school district, which I'd bought thinking about the future, maybe starting my own family someday. The guest room was decent-sized, and I figured the kids could share while Rebecca took the pull-out couch in there. The first few weeks were actually okay. Rebecca helped around the house, cooked amazing dinners, and the kids were surprisingly well-behaved. Tyler started opening up to me about school, showing me his drawings. Olivia, the middle child, would curl up next to me while I worked from home, reading her books quietly. Even little Nathan, who was initially shy, started following me around, asking endless questions about my computer and how websites worked. But then our mother got involved. Patricia showed up one day while I was in a video meeting. I could hear her through my home office door, directing Rebecca on where to put things, talking about how this arrangement could work long-term. When I finished my meeting and came out, she'd already been to Target and bought organizers for the guest room closet, a small dresser for the kids' clothes, and was measuring the windows for proper curtains. "James," she said, not even looking up from her measuring tape, "Rebecca needs stability right now. The children need consistency. This room has potential." "Mom, this is temporary," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "Rebecca's looking for her own place." Patricia gave me that look. The one that used to make me feel like I was 5 years old again, caught doing something wrong. "Family helps family, James. Or have you forgotten everything I taught you?" That night, Rebecca apologized for our mother's intrusion. "You know how she is," she said, looking exhausted. I told her not to come over, but she insisted on seeing where the kids were staying. I told her it was fine, that I understood. And I did. Our mother had a way of steamrolling into situations, taking control whether you wanted her to or not. Weeks turned into months. Rebecca had gotten a part-time job at a local marketing firm, but she said it wasn't enough to afford rent anywhere decent in the kids' school district. The divorce was getting messy. Kevin was fighting her on everything, trying to claim she'd abandoned the marital home, dragging out custody arrangements. I wanted to help. The kids had been through enough upheaval. So when Rebecca asked if they could stay just a little longer, I agreed. But things started changing around month 3. Rebecca stopped talking about apartment hunting. She'd redirected her mail to my address without asking. When I brought it up, she got defensive. "I needed a stable address for the custody paperwork," she said. "Kevin's lawyer is looking for any excuse to say I'm an unfit mother. Having a consistent address is important." It made sense at the time. But then I noticed other things. She'd hung pictures on the guest room walls, bought a rug. The kids' toys had migrated from the guest room into the living room, the kitchen, my home office. Nathan had started calling it our house. When I tried to establish some boundaries, asking her to keep the kids' things contained to the guest room, setting quiet hours for my work, Patricia got involved again. "They're children, James," she said during one of her unannounced visits. "You can't expect them to live like prisoners in one room. This is their home now, too." "It's not their home," I said, frustration building. "It's my home. I'm helping Rebecca through a tough time. But this was never meant to be permanent." Patricia's face hardened. "Rebecca is your sister. Those are your nephews and niece. After everything she did for you growing up, how can you be so selfish?" The guilt was suffocating. She was right that Rebecca had always been there for me. But this wasn't what I'd signed up for. I was 32, single, working from home. I bought this house as an investment in my future, not to become a landlord to my sister's family. Last week, everything came to a head. I'd been dating someone, Michelle, for about 2 months. Things were going well, and I invited her over for dinner. I told Rebecca in advance, asked her to keep the kids occupied in their room for the evening. Instead, I came home to find Rebecca had cooked an elaborate family dinner. The kids were at the dining table, which had been set with my good dishes. Patricia was there too, having apparently been invited by Rebecca. I thought it would be nice for Michelle to meet the whole family, Rebecca said brightly, since we all live here together. The evening was a disaster. Nathan spilled juice on Michelle's dress. Tyler kept interrupting our conversations to show Michelle his drawings. Olivia threw a tantrum when told it was bedtime. And through it all, Patricia kept making comments about how wonderful it was that I was stepping up for family, and how any woman I dated would need to understand that family comes first. Michelle left early. She texted me later, saying I seemed like a nice guy, but she wasn't ready to date someone with kids. When I tried to explain they weren't my kids, that this was temporary, she replied that it didn't seem very temporary to her. The next morning, I told Rebecca she needed to start seriously looking for her own place. I gave her a deadline, 2 months to find somewhere else to live. That's when she dropped the bomb. Mom says I don't have to leave, she said calmly, pouring coffee like we were discussing the weather. She looked into it. We've been here 6 months. We've established residency. You can't just kick us out. I was stunned. This is my house, Rebecca. I've been helping you, and I appreciate that, she said. But the kids are settled here. They're doing well in school. Nathan's finally sleeping through the night again. Moving them now would be traumatic. I did some research after that conversation, and my stomach sank. In my state, after 30 days, someone can claim tenancy rights even without a lease or paying rent. To remove them, I'd have to go through formal eviction proceedings. Evicting family members, especially ones with young children, could take months and would likely be looked upon unfavorably by the courts. I feel trapped in my own home. Rebecca contributes some money for groceries but pays no rent. She's made no real effort to find her own place. The kids, while sweet, have completely taken over my space. I can't bring dates home. I can't have friends over without navigating toys and children's shows on TV. My home office has become a makeshift home workstation in the afternoons. When I confronted Patricia about encouraging this, she was unrepentant. Rebecca needs stability while she gets through this divorce, she said. Would you really throw your sister and her babies out on the street? What kind of man does that make you? I'm not trying to throw anyone on the street. I just want my life back. I want to come home to my own space. I want to be able to walk to my kitchen in boxers without worrying about traumatizing my niece. I want to be the fun uncle who they visit, not the reluctant landlord guardian. But every time I bring up the moving out, I met with tears from Rebecca, guilt trips from Patricia, and sad looks from the kids who don't understand why Uncle James doesn't want them around anymore. I've consulted with a lawyer who confirmed what I feared. Eviction would be complicated, expensive, and could take months. He also warned me that Patricia and Rebecca could make things very difficult if they wanted to, including calling CPS with concerns about the children's welfare if I try to force them out. So I'm here asking for advice. How do I get my sister and her kids out of my house without destroying my family relationships or ending up in a legal nightmare? Is there any way to resolve this that doesn't involve formal eviction? And how do I deal with the crushing guilt of wanting my own space back when my sister and her kids genuinely need help? I know I probably sound selfish. Maybe I am. But I'm at my wit's end. This was supposed to be temporary. 6 months later, I feel like a stranger in my own home, and I don't know how to fix it without becoming the villain in everyone's story. Any advice would be appreciated. Update 1, 2 weeks later. Hi, everyone. I wanted to thank you all for the advice on my original post. I've read every comment, even the harsh ones calling me a doormat. You weren't wrong. I've tried to implement some of the suggestions, but things have escalated in ways I didn't expect. First, I took the advice about having a formal, documented conversation with Rebecca. I sent her an email outlining our original agreement, expressing that while I wanted to help, this arrangement was impacting my life significantly. I proposed a timeline. She had 60 days to find alternative housing, and I would help with the security deposit on a new place up to $2,000. Her response was to forward the email to our mother. Patricia showed up at my door within an hour, and this time she brought reinforcements, my Aunt Linda and my grandmother. They sat in my living room like some kind of family tribunal while I was trying to work. James, my grandmother said, disappointment dripping from every word. I never thought I'd see the day when one of my grandchildren would choose money over family. I tried to explain that it wasn't about money. I wasn't charging Rebecca rent. It was about having my own life, my own space. But they weren't listening. Linda chimed in about how her son Brandon had lived with her for 2 years after his divorce. Family takes care of family, she said. That's how we were raised. The meeting ended with Patricia making veiled threats about how the whole family would remember this when I needed help someday. My grandmother left without hugging me goodbye, the first time in my life that had happened. But the real surprise came a few days later. I came home from a rare day at the office to find a locksmith in my driveway. Rebecca was standing there, directing him to change the locks on my front door. "What the hell are you doing?" I asked, my heart racing. Rebecca looked at me calmly. "Mom said we should change the locks for safety. Kevin knows where I'm staying now, and with the custody battle heating up, we can't be too careful. This is M.Y. house, Rebecca. You can't change M.Y. locks." The locksmith looked uncomfortable, packing up his tools. "Ma'am, if your name isn't on the deed." "His name is on the deed," Rebecca said smoothly. "But I live here. I have residency rights." The locksmith left without doing the work, but the message was clear. Rebecca wasn't planning on leaving anytime soon. That evening, I discovered she'd been telling the neighbors that she lives here now. Mrs. Chin from next door mentioned how nice it was that I was letting my sister move in permanently and how good it was for the kids to have a stable home during the divorce. I also found out Rebecca had enrolled the kids in after-school activities using my address, joined the local community center as a household member, and even registered to vote using my address. Every piece of mail that arrived further cemented her claim to residency. The kids, meanwhile, had completely settled in. Tyler had asked if he could paint one wall of the guest room with chalkboard paint for his drawings. Olivia wanted to know if her best friend could sleep over next weekend. Nathan had started a small garden in my backyard, proudly showing me his tomato plants. It broke my heart because I love these kids. But I also realized that the longer this went on, the harder it would be to undo. I consulted with another lawyer, one who specialized in tenant law. She was blunt. "Your sister has established tenancy. The fact that she's family actually makes this worse, not better. Courts are very reluctant to evict family members, especially single mothers with young children. If you pursue this, you're looking at months of legal proceedings, thousands in legal fees, and no guarantee of success." She also warned me that Rebecca and Patricia seemed to be building a case. Changing the locks without your permission is illegal, but documenting all the ways she's established residency? That's strategic. Someone is advising them. Sure enough, I later learned that Patricia's friend from book club is a paralegal who went through a similar situation with her brother-in-law. The stress is affecting my work. I'm making mistakes, missing deadlines. My manager asked if everything was okay during our one-on-one. I couldn't exactly explain that I was living in a hostage situation in my own home. Michelle reached out last week, saying she'd been thinking about me. I wanted to respond, to try again, but what would I say? "Hey, want to come over?" Just ignore my sister who's squatting in my guest room, and my mother who'll interrogate you about your intentions. The financial burden is growing, too. Groceries for 5 people are expensive. The utilities have nearly doubled. Rebecca contributes what she can, which amounts to about $200 a month. She says the rest of her salary goes to her lawyer for the divorce. I feel like I'm being manipulated from all sides. Rebecca plays the victim, talking about how Kevin is trying to take the kids, how she never thought she'd be a single mother, how grateful she is that at least she has me. Patricia plays the enforcer, reminding me of family obligations and how Rebecca was there for me growing up. The kids are just kids, innocent in all this, which makes it worse. Last night, I overheard Rebecca on the phone with someone. I think her divorce lawyer. She was saying something about establishing a stable environment for the children and how living with family showed she had support systems in place. It hit me that I'm not just housing her. I'm being used as evidence in her custody battle. I'm at a complete loss. Every option seems to lead to me being the bad guy. If I formally evict her, I'm the uncle who threw his sister and her kids out during their darkest hour. If I don't, I'm stuck indefinitely as an unwilling landlord and co-parent to kids that aren't mine. Some of you mentioned setting boundaries, but how do you set boundaries with someone who's already inside the gates? Who has your mother as an ally and 3 kids as unwitting human shields? I'm going to try one more conversation with Rebecca, maybe try to appeal to the sister I remember, the one who protected me, who wouldn't have wanted to put me in this position. But I'm not hopeful. Thanks for listening. I'll update again if anything changes. Update 2, for months later. I know it's been a while since my last update. Honestly, I've started and deleted this post so many times because I'm still processing everything that's happened. But I owe you all an update, and maybe writing it out will help me figure out where to go from here. After my last post, I tried one more heartfelt conversation with Rebecca. I waited until the kids were at school and Patricia wasn't around. I even made her favorite coffee and sat down at the kitchen table, the same table where we used to do homework together as kids. "Becca," I said, using her childhood nickname, "this isn't what either of us wanted. I know you're going through hell with Kevin, but you're putting me through hell too. Can't we figure out something that works for both of us?" For a moment, I saw a flicker of the sister I remembered. Her eyes got soft, and she reached for my hand. "I know this is hard on you, James. I never wanted it to go on this long. But Kevin's being vicious. He's claiming I'm an unfit mother, that I can't provide a stable home. If I'm bouncing from place to place, living in some crappy apartment, he could get primary custody. I can't lose my kids." I felt for her. I really did. But then she said something that changed everything. "Mom says if I can just hold out until the divorce is final, Kevin will have to pay enough in alimony and child support that I can afford a good place. It shouldn't be more than another 6 months. 8 at the most. 8 more months." She said it so casually, like asking to borrow a book. "Rebecca, that's almost another year. I can't do this for another year." Her soft expression hardened immediately. "So you'd rather see your nephews and niece living in poverty? You'd rather help Kevin take them from me?" That's when I realized the sister who used to protect me was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. Or maybe this had always been there, hidden under the protective older sister facade. The next few weeks were tense. I started implementing some of the boundaries you all suggested. I put a lock on my home office door. I set up a separate mini fridge in my bedroom for my own food after finding my grocery bills had tripled. I stopped engaging when Patricia came over to lecture me. That's when the retaliation started. First, it was small things. My work calls would mysteriously have interruptions. Kids screaming, TV blaring, Rebecca needing something urgently, just as important meetings started. My food from the locked fridge would disappear when I forgot to lock it one time. "Oh, Nathan was hungry, and I didn't realize that yogurt was special," Rebecca would say innocently. Then came the big one. I woke up one morning to find a notice on my door from the city. Someone had called in a complaint about the illegal boarding house I was running. The inspector who came out was understanding when I explained the situation, but he still had to investigate. He noted that having 5 people in a 3-bedroom house wasn't against code, but any rent collected would need to be reported, and I'd need to ensure all safety requirements for a rental were met. "I'm not collecting rent," I told him. "It's my sister. She's just staying temporarily." He gave me a knowing look. "Sure. Just make sure you have working smoke detectors in every bedroom and common area. And if this temporary situation continues, you might want to check your homeowner's insurance policy. Some have clauses about long-term guests." After he left, I confronted Rebecca. She denied calling in the complaint, but the smirk on her face told me everything. Patricia, when I called her, said it was probably one of my nosy neighbors, and that if I hadn't made such a fuss about Rebecca staying, no one would have noticed anything wrong. I checked my homeowner's insurance. Sure enough, having long-term guests not on the policy could void my coverage. When I tried to add them, the premium nearly doubled. But the worst part, the kids were starting to turn against me, too. Not maliciously, they're still good kids. But Rebecca had started framing everything as "Uncle James doesn't want us here." When I put a lock on my office, Tyler asked why I was locking them out. When I bought my own food, Olivia asked if I didn't like eating with them anymore. Nathan stopped showing me his garden, saying, "Mommy said you don't like my plants." It was weaponizing the children in the most insidious way. Last month, things escalated to a point I never imagined. I'd started seeing someone new, Sarah. We'd been very careful, only meeting at her place or in public. But one evening, she surprised me by stopping by with takeout, thinking it would be nice. Rebecca answered the door before I could. "Oh, you must be James's new girlfriend," she said brightly. "I'm Rebecca, his sister. I live here with my 3 kids. Come in. The kids would love to meet you." What followed was an orchestrated disaster. Rebecca had clearly coached the kids. They were on their worst behavior, screaming, fighting, making messes. Tyler knocked over Sarah's wine accidentally. Olivia had a meltdown about wanting Sarah's food. Nathan clung to my leg, crying about how Uncle James was going to leave them for a new family. But the coup de grace was when Patricia showed up, unannounced as always. Another girlfriend, James? She said coolly, looking Sarah up and down. I hope this one understands family values better than the last one. Sarah left within an hour. She texted me later. James, you seem nice, but this is way too much drama for me. Good luck with everything. I haven't heard from her since. That night, I told Rebecca she had 30 days to get out. Not 60, not 90. 30 days, or I would start formal eviction proceedings. The next morning, I woke up to 47 missed calls and a storm of text messages. Patricia had rallied the entire extended family. My phone was a tsunami of guilt, manipulation, and outright threats. How dare you? Those poor children. You'll regret this. We won't forget this betrayal. What would your father think? He passed 5 years ago, and invoking him was a low blow even for Patricia. But the one that chilled me to the bone was from Patricia. If you try to evict Rebecca, I'll call CPS and report that you're endangering the children by trying to make them homeless. I'll tell them about the locks you've put up, how you're denying them food, creating a hostile environment. See how that affects your precious career. I screenshot that message and immediately forwarded it to my lawyer. Her response was sobering. This is escalating to dangerous territory. Your mother is essentially threatening to file a false CPS report, which is illegal, but proving it's false could be a nightmare. CPS investigations, even unfounded ones, are serious. If you work in tech, some companies have morality clauses that could be triggered by such an investigation. She recommended I start documenting everything, every interaction, every threat, every incident. She also suggested I install security cameras in common areas of my home, with proper notice to Rebecca, of course. When I informed Rebecca about the cameras for everyone's safety, she lost it. You're treating us like criminals, she screamed. We're your family. Family doesn't threaten family, I shot back. Family doesn't take advantage of generosity and turn it into a hostage situation. She started crying then, but it felt calculated. The kids were watching from the stairs, and she made sure they could hear every word. Did you hear that, babies? Uncle James thinks we're holding him hostage. He wants to put us on the street. Tyler, the oldest, looked at me with such disappointment. I thought you loved us, Uncle James. I retreated to my room and didn't come out for the rest of the night. So here I am, 4 months after my last update, 10 months into this nightmare. Rebecca is still here. The kids are still here. My dating life is non-existent. My relationship with my extended family is destroyed. I have cameras in my own home that make me feel like a prison warden. My sister and I can barely be civil to each other. The kids walk on eggshells around me, coached by their mother to see me as the enemy, and the latest development, Rebecca's divorce is dragging on. Kevin's lawyer has apparently raised questions about her living situation, suggesting that living with a single male relative might not be the best environment for the children. So now Rebecca is painting me as the stable, family-oriented brother who's graciously supporting his sister, while simultaneously threatening to have me investigated by CPS if I try to evict her. I'm trapped in a web of manipulation that would be impressive if it wasn't destroying my life. My lawyer has suggested mediation with a family counselor present. She thinks having a neutral third party might help Rebecca see how her actions are affecting everyone, including her children. But mediation requires both parties to participate in good faith, and I'm not sure Rebecca or Patricia are capable of that anymore. I love my nephews and niece. Despite everything, I don't blame them. They're victims in this too. But I can't live like this anymore. I can't be held hostage in my own home by guilt and manipulation. I can't let Patricia and Rebecca destroy my life because Rebecca made bad choices in her marriage. I'm at a crossroads. Do I proceed with eviction and risk the threatened CPS investigation, the complete destruction of my family relationships, and the trauma to the kids? Or do I continue to live as a prisoner in my own home, watching my life pass by while Rebecca uses me as a prop in her divorce proceedings? I never thought I'd say this, but I've actually considered selling the house just to force the issue. But even that feels like letting them win. Thank you all for following this saga. Your support and advice have kept me sane. I'll update again when I figure out what to do next. Final update, 2 months later. This will be my last update on this situation. I wanted to wait until everything was resolved before posting, and I finally have some closure to share. After my last post, I was at rock bottom. The threats from Patricia about CPS, the manipulation from Rebecca, the guilty looks from the kids, it was all too much. Some of you messaged me privately with similar stories, and honestly, those messages kept me going. Knowing I wasn't alone, that this kind of family manipulation happens to others made me feel less crazy. The turning point came from an unexpected source, Kevin, Rebecca's soon-to-be ex-husband. He reached out to me through my LinkedIn of all places. His message was simple: I think we should talk. I was suspicious, obviously, but I was also desperate. I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop downtown, somewhere public and neutral. Kevin looked rough. He'd lost weight, had bags under his eyes, and seemed to have aged years in the months since their separation. But his first words shocked me. I didn't cheat on her, he said quietly. I never cheated on Rebecca. She made it all up. He showed me documents, credit card statements Rebecca had claimed were for hotels and jewelry. The hotels were business trips, all documented with company expense reports. The jewelry charge was for his mother's birthday gift, which he had the receipt for, complete with an engraving for Mom. Why would she lie about that? I asked, though part of me was already connecting dots I didn't want to connect. Kevin laughed bitterly, because she wanted out, but she wanted to be the victim. She couldn't just ask for a divorce. She needed a story where she was the wrong party, where everyone would rally around her. He told me about the months leading up to their separation. Rebecca had been spending more time with Patricia, coming home talking about how she deserved better and how Kevin was holding her back. Patricia had been filling her head with stories about how much money she could get in alimony and child support if she played her cards right. Your mother convinced her that being a victim of infidelity would get her better terms in the divorce, Kevin said. More sympathy from the judge, more money, more likelihood of primary custody. All she had to do was sell the story. I felt sick. But Kevin wasn't done. Do you know why she really chose to stay with you instead of your mother? He asked. I shook my head. Because Patricia told her to. Living with Patricia would look like she had options. Living with you, a single man with a good job and a nice house, while you support her and the kids. That shows family support and stability. It was all calculated, James, every bit of it. He showed me text messages between Rebecca and Patricia, screenshots he'd gotten through the discovery process in their divorce. They were damning. Patricia coaching Rebecca on what to say, how to act, how to make me feel guilty. Discussions about how long they could milk this situation before I either gave in and let them stay permanently or paid them to leave. There was even a message where Patricia said, James was always too soft. He'll cave eventually, and if he doesn't, we'll make sure everyone knows what kind of man abandons his sister and her babies. I sat there in that coffee shop, reading message after message, feeling like the world's biggest fool. The sister I thought I'd been helping had been playing me from day one. The mother I'd been trying to appease had been orchestrating the whole thing. Why are you showing me this? I asked Kevin. Because they're doing to you what they did to me, he said. Patricia convinced Rebecca that I was the enemy, that she deserved everything I'd worked for. Now they're convincing your family that you're the enemy. I lost my kids, James. I see them every other weekend if I'm lucky, and when I do, they've been poisoned against me. I don't want to see the same thing happen to you. I asked if I could have copies of the messages. He said his lawyer advised against it, but he could testify to their existence if needed. Armed with this knowledge, I went home and did something I should have done months ago. I called Patricia's bluff. I sent a group email to Rebecca, Patricia, and CC'd my lawyer. In it, I laid out everything. The original agreement was temporary. Rebecca had made no good faith effort to find alternative housing. The threats of false CPS reports were criminal. I had documentation of everything, including their messages about milking the situation. They had 30 days to vacate, or I would pursue formal eviction and press charges for extortion. I also included one more thing. If CPS is called, I will fully cooperate with their investigation. I will also provide them with all documentation of the threats made to weaponize their services, which I'm sure they'll find very interesting. The response was immediate and explosive. Patricia called screaming about betrayal, about family, about how I'd regret this. Rebecca cried, begged, pleaded. She even tried to seduce me one night, which was so wildly inappropriate and desperate that it only strengthened my resolve. But I held firm. I installed more cameras. I documented everything. I even hired an off-duty police officer to be present when I knew confrontations were likely. The extended family pressure was intense. I was disinvited from Christmas, from cousin Jennifer's wedding, from my nephew's baptism. My grandmother sent me a letter saying she was disappointed in the man I'd become. But a funny thing happened. Some family members started reaching out privately. My cousin David told me Patricia had tried the same thing with him years ago, trying to move Rebecca in after a fight with Kevin. My Aunt Sarah, not Linda, who had been at that intervention, admitted she'd always thought Patricia was manipulative but had been too afraid to say anything. Kevin's testimony in his divorce proceedings about the false cheating allegations changed everything. The judge was not pleased. Rebecca's credibility was shot. The custody arrangement shifted in Kevin's favor. Without the leverage of the divorce proceedings and faced with actual consequences, Rebecca folded. She found an apartment within 2 weeks. Turns out she'd had the money all along, squirreled away in an account Patricia had helped her set up. The move out was tense. Patricia supervised, making snide comments the whole time. The kids were confused and upset, which broke my heart. Tyler asked me why I was making them leave. I knelt down to his level and told him the truth in age-appropriate terms. I love you guys, but this was always meant to be temporary while your mom figured things out. You'll have your own rooms at your new place, and I'll still be your Uncle James. We'll have sleepovers and fun uncle days, just like we were supposed to. Olivia hugged me and whispered, I know Mommy was being mean to you sometimes. Kids see more than we think they do. It's been 2 months since they moved out. The house is quiet. I can walk to my kitchen in my boxers again. I've started dating Sarah again. Turns out she'd been through something similar with her family and understood why I'd needed to handle it the way I did. Rebecca and I don't speak except for coordinating when I can see the kids. Patricia has told the entire family that I'm dead to her. The flying monkeys still occasionally send nasty messages, but they're getting fewer. But here's the thing. I'm free. I'm in therapy, working through the guilt and manipulation I endured. I'm learning about boundaries, about how toxic family dynamics work, about how people like Patricia create these situations and people like Rebecca enable them. I've reconnected with Kevin, oddly enough. We're not friends exactly, but we share a unique understanding. He's rebuilding his relationship with his kids, and I make sure to reinforce positive messages about their dad when I see them. The kids come over 1 weekend a month now, by my choice and on my terms. They're starting to understand that Uncle James loves them but has his own life, too. The visits are fun again, not tense. We make pizzas, play video games, have movie nights. Then they go home to their own place, and I go back to my life. I've lost some family through this, maybe permanently, but I've gained something more valuable: self-respect, boundaries, and the knowledge that being family doesn't mean being a doormat.